Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I just want to point out that these items here, I'm not done with them, but if you saw the before picture, and you see this now, that all that was accomplished with the ultrasonic cleaner with water and purple power solution hot, about a total of 30 minutes, because this was sticking out partially, so I had to flip it around, so it was two 15-minute cycles, and that caused the paint to bubble up, and I was able to just use like a grill brush on it, and all that came off like that. So I will have to do some electric wire wheeling on it, but that sure saves a whole lot of it. Not bad at all. So I just wanted to, before I'm not done painting yet, but I'm about to pop the top on a new can of paint, and I wanted to repeat something I think I've said before, that I brush paint cast iron stuff, and several different reasons. Sometimes it's easier to cut in stuff rather than tape it, but also there's no advantage I can find to spray painting in terms of the surface that the finish you achieve. It looks just as good after it. You do have to watch out for runs and that sort of stuff, but that happens with spray paint too. And this can is probably more than 5 years old. I'm sure I've painted 10 machines and 1 or 2 vices, and it would still actually have plenty of paint left, except I do run into a problem after it gets about halfway to where even if it did have a good seal, like when it gets nasty like that, then I put plastic over it and things, but it's still just that air that's in there will cause it to skim over on top, and then you're wasting that every time you open it. So haven't really figured out a good system to avoid that type of loss, but other than that, it goes a long way to use. I use oil base, but to brush paint rather than the spray cans. Spray cans nowadays are going for $7 or $8. This can, or this one that I just bought at Ace, was $11.99, and Ace is a little higher than the big box stores, and I don't know, I'll check to see what it is on Amazon and throw a link in there. Probably not much different, but for something that you'll spend 1 or 2 cans doing this job, vice this much of a regular old brush can. Alright, so this is how the wood lathe is looking now. Still have a few pieces left to paint, and I am waiting for the bearing. Goes here and here. I did receive the oil-light sleeve bearing that goes on this end. I'll show that in a minute, and talk about it a bit. I think right now, so this did come with 2 of these, what would you call these things? Not a banjo, I don't know. Whatever, you understand what it is. It's what attaches the tool post. Maybe the tool post holder. Let's call it a tool post holder. How about that? Right. So it came with 2 of them, and I thought, oh, somebody must have just come up with an extra one somewhere along the way or something. But looking around in the catalogs, I think you could actually get a double tool rest that had 2 pins and could span a large portion of the bed, which is kind of a cool idea. But I don't have any of the extra parts that you would need to make that happen. You would need a third one of these bottom clamps, because right now one of these goes to the tailstock and the other goes to the tool rest holder, or whatever we're going to call that thing. So you would need a third one, and then you would need a third one of these, because one of these goes into tailstock and the other one's going to go into one of these. So I'd have to make one of these, make another one of these, and then make some kind of a rest to go across. So I actually think that would be kind of a neat thing to do. I don't have the time to do it right this second, but down the road, who knows? I know one thing I want to do. I would like to deluxe this wheel. If you look at the stalled out Logan project over here, you can see, I started with something like that, entered it into that, and I think that's a worthwhile thing to do. It not only looks better, it actually feels better when you are using the machine to have the polished outer ring, and polishing it helps keep down the rust, and it just feels better when you're using the tool. So I think I'm going to do that. It's going to be a little more difficult with this one, because to get this pin out on these other wheels, on the Logan wheels, you can see the hole that they were pressed into went all the way through, so I was able to press it out from this side, and I don't have that kind of a hole here. So I can either make one, mount it up in the Bridgeport, and using an end mill, try to center it up and just drill down with the end mill until I touch off on the handle here and press through, or I can try to make something to some sort of wedge fork kind of thing to try to extract it that way. I haven't decided what I'm going to do, but I do need to get that off of there so I can spin this in the lathe and apply a file and start dressing this up. But I think that would be nice. I think that's worth doing at this stage, just to dress this up and make it better. I did that, something like that with these guys, and I think it was worth it, polishing them up. They were pretty nasty looking before. And I don't think they were originally made to be polished. Actually, I take that back. They were rusty, but I did, for one of these, I sanded it and then polished it, and then the other one I said, after I got the paint off, I think that was just bare metal. I don't think it was painted originally, and so I just polished it. And they look about the same, but when you use the one versus the other, you can feel the difference. The sanding I did to this one, actually, it makes it feel nicer, and it'll probably, the smoother it is, the less susceptible to rust. So it was probably worth it. I may go back and do this one. I'll see how time goes. One other piece that I'm thinking about what to do with. What's your call on this? I don't think that's original. I think this thing broke at some point and somebody welded it. Do you think a factory would put that out back in like the 1930s or 40s? What do you think? I think if I can find a suitable rod, piece of stock this diameter, I may, if I can figure out how to mount it up in the mill, correctly, I may, cut that off and face this portion here flat, and then drill down and make a proper mount for if I had a piece of drill rod or something, that would be great. But that's, you know, that's one of those things that would be nice to do. We'll see whether we do it or not. Time and resources depending. So first thing, get this off, pick a plan to remove this handle, proceed, clean it, and then paint this guy, and that'll be a little bit of progress. And here's what I wanted to say about that oil light sleeve. This helped me decide whether or not I needed to rebuild this shaft. This is the bearing area that the sleeve fits on, and this is the old sleeve. Don't want to exaggerate it, but it's, you know, you can see it's pretty bad. Now, this has some wear here, but with a brand new sleeve, it's taken up a lot of that slack. I know if I were A-bomb and could whip this out in 10 minutes, I'd be making a new one. But for me, you know, boring a shaft, putting in Morse taper, single point machining these threads, and then, I mean, the flats are pretty trivial. They're flats that these set screws rest on. That wouldn't be a problem at all. But some of those other operations would tax my Atlas a bit, or at least at my skill level, put it that way. I just watched Jayster make an Acme feed rod for his Atlas shaper using his Atlas 618. So, you know, where there's a will, there's a way. I don't know if I have that much will to go after this job if I don't have to. And it seems like for the job this thing's meant to do as a wood lathe, I think this will be sufficient. If I change my mind, I'll change my mind. But that's where I'm at right now. It was definitely worth it to get the new bearing, though. There's significant difference in the interior diameter. Alright, so that's my setup. I forgot to turn the camera on to film it, but I am actually through there. Focus, focus. Hang on, let me reset this thing. Okay, so yeah, I have a grip by the vise on the handle, and therefore I was able to find a center that way that I was pretty confident about. And from this direction, I just eyeballed it, and I appear to have come pretty darn close, because at a certain point it just went shoop. So I think I'm through, and now that's actually touching the handle. So we're going to find out. Oh yeah, perfect. Can you see that? Man, I think I nailed that center. That's about as good as it gets. So now I'm just going to take a little drift pin and try to drive that handle out of there, and we'll see how that works. Alrighty, here we go. Let's see if this works. I was hoping for some immediate gratification. I don't want to pound on this thing. If it won't come easily, I'll end up having to press it out. Yep, it's moving. There we go. There it is. Cool. So now with this out, I can turn this in the lathe and polish it all up, and I'll also polish this guy up, and this will turn out nicely. Well, I decided to stop at this point here. I have taken it out to the buffing wheel to get some shine on it, but I did not take out every bit of pitting because, I mean, that's pretty deep. That's deeper than I anticipated, but I still think it looks nice. And when this is painted with the gray to match the lathe on the interior, and then you have the semi-polished, shall we call it, and it feels good. That's the main thing. You know, when you're working with tools that feel good, that makes a lot of difference to me. And I think this will turn out nicely. I'll just have to get this pressed back in. I'll do the painting first, then I'll press this back in, and I'll probably put wax on it to try to keep it from rusting down in those pits, and that'll be good. I have been working on painting the hand wheel. It's got a couple of coats. Second coat's drying on it right now. Looks pretty good. Alright, we're getting pretty close here. This, the new bearing finally came in. Take a quick peek at it. This bearing is new old stock, and the supplier says that they went ahead and took this apart, flushed all the old grease, and re-greased it so that it should be essentially as good as it was back in 1947. So that's kind of cool. And the size bearing, it's a 88504A19. It's that A19 that's the rarity for this thing. It's 19 millimeters, or 3/4 of an inch. And if I if were to do it over again, what I might have done is remade this shaft and had the portion that went through the bearing a more standard size. I think 20 millimeter is common, but I have to go back and look that up again. But there is a way this could be done without having this rare old bearing. So 50 years from now, when somebody's rebuilding this, there's an idea for them. What I got to do now is figure out exactly how everything lines up, and this is the way I think it should be. I believe that this ridge right here is for a circlip that will hold the face of the bearing, and that'll hold the bearing this way. This piece here will come snug up against it, and I just have it sitting in here right now, but I'll show you. I do have the new sleeve bearing installed. I went ahead and made a little landing point for the set screw here out of that area that was deformed before. Pretty sure that's where that belongs, and it does seem to match up with the bearing being here and this being snugged up to here. Then I think if I can get a circlip, then that will essentially capture the bearing. I believe with it being pressed, it's probably not going anywhere anyway, but you know, that's the belt and suspenders approach. So the designers had that in mind, and I'll try to duplicate it. Then once that's all set up, I'm basically ready to press this in, except for the little matter of the belt. I need to figure out what size belt I want to use, which means I'm going to have to get a motor. I got to mock the whole thing up and figure out how it's all going to sit, and then I can buy an appropriate belt. And once the belt's on here, then just install this whole thing, and we'll be down to nothing left but cosmetics after that. Alrighty, I'm gonna go press a bearing. Alright, so bearing is pressed on. I'm just playing around with this collar. I don't even know what the function of this collar is. Yeah, no idea. Now I bought a retaining clip to test my theory that that's what that's for. So we'll try to get that on there. Use got a little snap ring pliers I gotta get from the other shop. See if I can get that on there and test my theory that that's what that little slot right there is for. And other than that, oh, I also purchased a new belt. So we are about ready to put this thing back together. I got some new bolts to put it together with and lock washers. So here we go. See if this gives me better control. Problem with it is it's already cockeyed, and that's got me. There we go. Yes, that's working better. Come on, get down there. Okay, and we're in. Okay, what do you think? I think I'm correct that that's what that little groove down there is for that little pin. If so, it makes me think I might want to have it pressed back up against it, but I don't know. I think it's just a safety thing. I think the press on this deal is enough, to be honest. Yeah, I think that's more your belt and suspender type of deal. I think we're good. So I marked where the flats are with a Sharpie, so I should be able to line the pulley up pretty well once we're done. And now it's a matter of pressing this bad boy in. And I don't think there's much of an interference fit here. I'm gonna try. Oh crap! You know what? I might have wanted to do this before I put that clip on there. Yeah, so I can. I'm gonna give it a little tappy tap. Let's just see if it moves at all. Yeah, she's drawn right in there. Yeah, that's not a. There's not a lot of interference there. I was kind of curious whether this would travel and pull up tight against that retainer clip, and it did not. So I mean, the press on the bearing is pretty solid. The press to the into the casting there's not much there. Alright guys, I think I'm going to wrap this video up here just because it's getting long, and I'm at a good stop point, I think. Went ahead and put it all back together, and I mounted it to this board. I don't know if this board will be incorporated permanently, but I needed something that I could work with to try to set up a motor. I have a motor in mind for it, and I don't have a triple cone. So we'll figure something out there. Not sure what. Oh, I want to show this. I don't remember if I showed this before, but fortunately, when I cleaned the badge off, it had originally been, when this thing was, somebody brush painted this black, and it had splashed around the badge. But looks like it came out pretty clean without disturbing the paint underneath. So that's cool. That'll go right there. Kind of happy about that. Kept the little pins that go with it. Alright, yeah, so I'll wrap it up. The next video will be about trying to put some power to it and play around with it. Cool.